amazing. Changemakers Experience Day Retreat Edition. What a day it was. So we went up to Manawa, which is a beautiful retreat space up in White Cliffs, which most of us didn't even know existed. And the venue, honestly.
Yeah, it's amazing how important the space is that you're in, and like when it's the right sort of setting with beautiful big trees and like so much space, and then even inside the space that we were in, just set up to be really comfortable and just
open,
put everyone at ease.
Yeah, very like nurturing, luxurious kind of vibes. Fire pit, bean bags, beautiful big sauna, swimming pool. Yeah, we're very lucky to have that. Like, it was less than 15 minutes for us to drive there.
Very handy.
Very, very handy. Yeah, beautiful big kitchen. So we spent all of Saturday, well, not all of Saturday, but a few hours on Saturday creating beautiful, nourishing food, which is like our favourite thing to do when we're not talking, coaching. We're creating
delicious
and making food. Yeah. So that was kind of fitting, and everybody, I think that was probably one of the highlights was the food. Everybody loved eating that. But what we kind of wanted to chat about today was our key kind of takeaways, lessons, takeaways, things of to note from what we kind of got out and what the attendees got out of our experience. Going into it, we set our intention of what we would like our attendees to experience and take away. Not just super structured, like they have to do X, Y, Z, but like what we wanted to bring ourselves. And what was just so beautiful was how we were able to hold the space and carry that intention through what we delivered, and then also just like surrender into the flow of the day and being able to feel what the group needed and where the group was at and how we kind of weaved the day. Like, we had an idea around what we knew we wanted to deliver. However, we are so able to tune into like our intuition and into our own energy, and then feel the energy of the group to let it weave through and just let be what needed to be, not forcing anything. It was just when I reflect back on it, it was just, so beautiful and really hard to actually put into words how to describe what happened.
Well, I think it was a beautiful example of stepping away from thinking you need to control everything and have it all mapped out to within an inch of its life, to feel like then we knew what we were doing and that we were going to deliver something of value. Because that's certainly what I used to think I needed in how I used to conduct myself or my life, or my work previously, was like I would have every detail mapped out, because then that gave me certainty that I knew what was going to happen, and I knew I was going to then do the right thing and do a good job. And actually what you described so beautifully was that what we've learned to do is trust ourselves, that we do know what we're doing, and then especially when we hold like that intention, like what's the goal, what do we want to deliver, and just allowing us to hold that then from there we will instinctively, given the humans in the room, given how the day unfolds, we can trust ourselves to lean into the pieces that make more sense and leave behind or let go of, some of the plan that we had where we could decide actually we're not going to do that because there was more value for everybody who was attending to sit for a bit longer with the sharing that we did, for example, and like actually be seeing each other and sharing and finding that relatability. You realize that actually that space is so valuable, that you and I don't need to be constantly delivering, that actually the group dynamic itself is so powerful that actually creating space for the group to interact with each other is where the attendees are going to get the most value. And so it's us getting out of the way of like, what do we want to do or need to do so that we feel like we're being valuable, being able to let that those thoughts go, and actually sit in and observe what was happening and go into, and letting it unfold, right? Like, very new, very new.
And so beautiful to be in a place where we've worked really hard on ourselves to get to that. And then it's again that reflection time when we sit here and go, wow, look what actually happened when we fully just be us, our true, authentic, vulnerable selves. And that's exactly what we encouraged the attendees to do too, right? And we saw them enter the space feeling a little bit apprehensive, feeling a little bit guarded, feeling a little bit, everyone was warm and welcoming, of course, because we're being nice and polite, but inside it was like that, like this feels uncomfortable, I'm not sure, like what's going to happen, but we'll play nice and, go through the motions and we'll be polite and all the things and sit down. And then to the end of the day, where everybody, like they were all hugging each other, and like I actually said to Charlie, I didn't realise such and such were such close friends, and you're like, no,
I didn't know each other before today.
Yeah, exactly. But that was the vibe, right? We've all just become so much closer in witnessing each other, and I think a big part of what came out of the day retreat was realizing how powerful it is when we all come together and actually realize that we're not alone. We are all going through things, whether we speak it or not, when we can kind of see past the facade of like everything's fine, and allow other people to see you for you and what you're actually going through, and then the other person can relate and go, oh my gosh, me too. Like, the power in that was just so beautiful, and allowed for the actual, like, the transformation and the change to take place, because we were no longer, everybody kind of put down the mask, or put down the pretending for a little bit, and just which I don't think in life we get many opportunities to do that.
Certainly not being witnessed by so many others as well, right? Like maybe occasionally with a really close friend, or your mum or someone, like you might be able to, really speak into something very vulnerable. But to do it in a group setting, I think is fairly unusual. And yet it's the deepest, most powerful medicine, that connection, and not feeling alone. I'm not alone with this, I think. A couple of people said, which, that's immediately, it like halves the burden, right, of only I think this way, or there's something wrong with me, so that's why I'm stuck, or why I'm struggling with something. And when you hear someone else's story and relate deeply to what they're struggling with, and then have that moment of like, oh, hang on, someone else is struggling with this, I think it's just profoundly powerful, because it's that it really breaks through that myth of like, I have to do it on my own, or I'm the only one who struggles with this, or something's wrong with me because I struggle with this. And it just smashes that myth wide open, and then I think it's that experience of being vulnerable and then afterwards still feeling quite safe, because then you get held by other people.
That's what I was going to say. Like, and I think someone even said it at the day retreat, is like, we feel this way, and sometimes we might feel safe to share that with somebody, and so you might ring a friend or your mum or like whatever, and then when you've hung up the phone, sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, why did I just share that? Like, oh, what did I say? Like, and then you feel guilty, or you feel shame, or you feel embarrassed or whatever for like bearing something that you're like, I should have just kept it to myself. Like, or am I losing my mind? Like, what am I doing? Even speaking that out. And that's having the space that we created there for people for it not to be unsafe, was really, really beautiful. And I can definitely relate to that, where there's been times where there's so much like shame around my suffering, or like in terms of feeling like where I'm at, and like, why am I feeling like this? Like, why can't I just enjoy my life? Like, why do I feel so stuck, or like in this loop, and then wanting to share it because I couldn't deal with it myself, but then not wanting to share it because I'm like embarrassed or like having that shame or whatever around it. And it almost makes the problem worse, because when you do share it, then now we're doubling down on the shame and the guilt, because they might not get it, or like then they give you some advice thinking that's going to help, but it doesn't.
And then you unpack the advice and see the judgments in that, or create your own story around that as well, right? And so I think what it essentially all comes back to is creating safety, essentially, that the safety to not only in the moment to share the struggle that you're dealing with, and the safety to then, sit in the fact that you've just shared that and get some kind of feedback that makes, reassures you. And none of it is ever strategic reassurance. It's not like, oh, well, what you should have done is X, Y, and Z. That's not it. The reassurance is, I see you, I understand, and look, I'm not running away, or I'm not overburdened by you and what you've just said. I can actually sit here and and be with you whilst you cry, or are angry or upset, and it's okay. And I think that's where the nervous system component of what we do in our coaching comes in, because it's essentially being able to down-regulate your nervous system so that you can stay with something that's upsetting, or that hasn't felt okay to be with, and suddenly you're creating the safety within your body, not only by having spoken the words and then receive some reassurance, but actually in the physiological experience that you're having in that moment, is that you feel the person sitting next to you is staying calm, and so then your nervous system starts to regulate with them, and we create this safety that then becomes an imprint, right? And that's what people walk away with, is this newfound safety around, it's okay to be me. It's okay to be all of me. And I think that is hard to explain.
It is.
I go to science to explain it, because that's my science brain can kind of like logically move through that. But I would say that that's what a group experience, when we talk about inviting people in and now we form a group and we're here all together and then we hold that space all together. I think that can, to some people it can sound, a bit woo-woo and spiritual, and it's all like, oh, that, that sounds lovely and fluffy. But that what it genuinely is how we function as human beings, is that our nervous systems regulate with the nervous systems around us. And by you and I first creating the safe space by being who we are and sharing authentically, and then and that entire time holding the space safely for everybody else, means that others join in, and it becomes a group dynamic of connection and and just beautiful sharing, and then beginning to unpack and reframe some of these things that really keep us trapped.
Yeah, because like I said before, there's not many times in life for me personally that I've felt like I can truly be my authentic self without judgment or fear or whatever else. And it was something that I spoke into, is the power of a safe space, of a community of people who actually put their hand up and go, yes, please, I would like to come and be my authentic self with you, without especially as women, I find it's our defense and our protection mechanism to kind of keep each other at arm's length and judge and put down and not celebrate each other, because there's a fear around what if she's better than me, or
fear of failure. I'm a failure.
Yeah.
If I'm vulnerable, if I'm not coping with this, then therefore I'm failing. And so then I don't want to be splashing that around to anybody else. And so it's only natural, right? It's a natural response to want to put on the brave face and make it out like everything's okay. But then we're comparing the internal turmoil. We're comparing with someone else's highlight reel that they're prepared to share with the world, and that then just further exacerbates the feeling of I'm not doing it right, or I'm not good enough, and just it makes that 10 times worse. So then the opposite is true when you come into a group retreat like what we did on Sunday, is that when you see that somebody else is struggling, let alone struggling with something similar to what you're struggling with, the transformation is like 10x, because just that realization that I'm not alone, I'm not broken, or I'm not the only one who didn't get the manual of life and isn't doing it right. Suddenly there's a shared experience, and that gives you so much permission to then have more compassion with yourself, because how we respond to someone else struggling is entirely different to how we respond to ourselves struggling, right? So you see another woman open up and be vulnerable about their struggle, and how you feel about and what you want to say to that other person is then the exact thing you can begin to offer yourself, because it creates that permission to do that, and that experience of actually having it said to you and you saying it to someone else. And
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like trying to do this work. We've talked about this so many times. Like, it's not a do-it-yourself journey or job or whatever you want to call it. Like, trying to do that by yourself is actually, I would say, pretty impossible. Well, no, nothing's impossible, but it's hard. It's long.
Well, it's way harder than it needs to be, right?
Exactly right. And then you can do it, like we've spoken, with a coach one-on-one, which is also beautiful. And then, like you say, 10x in a group environment, because when we are in the midst of the problem or the struggle or whatever it is, it's like the glasses are on and it's so foggy, it's really hard to actually see or hear, or like the logical part of your brain, like you said before, is completely gone, right? And so when you hear somebody else sharing what they're going through, like the realizations and the insights, because you're out of it and you're detached, but you're seeing it like in somebody else, like you say, the medicine of that is like, holy, the insights and the transformations when you're out of your own problem but can see it, that somebody else is going through it. And like you just said, like what you would offer them, it's like, wow, I can actually give that to myself. It's and we saw that happening, right? Like it was just so beautiful. Someone was sharing, and then and all of us are like really in it with them.
Leaning in. Like you see people leaning in, and it's, and there's others starting to tear up. They're feeling the emotion, like the charge of what this person's struggling with, and then we all hold that together and then watch as, somebody is able to, even just by saying what's been a struggle, like it's kind of like releasing it. It's getting it out of here where I've been struggling with it for so long, and actually putting it out there. There's so much magic in that. And I guess going against that old school of thinking that somebody needs to be fixed. No, they don't. There's nothing broken. There's a misunderstanding. There's some misunderstandings that have been holding you back. But once you can hear some of those misunderstandings and they become clear, then you just release them. There's no fixing going on. It's more like a remembering.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think like a lot of the transformation and change that these women walked away from was actually the possibility that there's a way out of their own cycle. And we used the analogy of like they came in to the day retreat potentially in the passenger seat of the vehicle of their life, right? And it was just going all around. It's like the Uber driver but you didn't tell them where to go. So you're just hanging out in the back and going, well, this is a bit shit. I don't really like this. And why are we here? And what's happening? And I don't like this. And what actually happened was we kicked the Uber driver out and said, hey, you want to jump in and take your own life by the steering wheel, and giving them that like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Holy shit. Okay, let's go. Let's get in. Let's go.
I get to decide.
Yeah. Like
I get to make choices.
Yeah, I'm not just stuck in the backseat of this car like I thought I was. Like life's happening to me, and I don't get a choice. And this is the cards I'm dealt. So, and that's so where I was. And the problem for me was that it was okay. So I don't really have too much motivation to like question it or like get out. And like, don't get me wrong, there were definitely times where wasn't great, but it wasn't and we talk about this a lot too, like the pain wasn't great enough for me to actually really want to do anything about it. So we just kept on driving around, and then, yeah, it was like that car crash moment almost. My driver died. And I'm like, shit, all right, I guess it's me. Yeah, like, wow, okay, I can drive. This sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think because essentially even when something's uncomfortable, if it's known, it still feels safer than something that I don't know. So I may not be satisfied with what's happening,
But
I don't know what. But I don't know what that other what else it looks like. So actually, I'll just sit here in this level of dissatisfaction because it's known at least.
The discomfort of your comfort zone.
But when you can witness somebody else have a realization, or especially between our two stories, and seeing what's possible by sharing that and the work that we do, people get a real sense, a real experience, not only of it intellectually. Oh yes, of course, change is possible. So many of us can obviously grasp the concept that people change and things could be better, but it's actually being able to embody that and actually do something about it, and have not only like a practical way of doing that, but an experiential way of doing that. And so, when people move through their story of, I don't do that, or I can't do that, or that's not something for me, and they, really push past that old story and actually look at it and go, oh, hang on, that is for me. That is something I want. That's, that experience is what you take away, and you visit again and again and again and again and again in your life to kind of go, hang on, I'm getting stuck in a story here, or I'm making some rules again. Is this what I really want?
I think we spoke about it at the day retreat, is around like how crunchy it feels at the start, because we have so much evidence to reinforce our old story of why it's hard and why we can't and why that's not possible for me and why this is how my life is, because that's what we're focused on a lot of the time, and where your focus goes, energy flows. So you continue to get, see, I told you so, like, this is hard, and like, you keep getting that same feedback coming back and back and back, and then when you make a decision to choose something different, it's like a little bit tricky to find and to stay with it. And I feel like that's why so many of us end up back where we started and in the loop, because again, there's not safety in it. It's not an embodied choice, it's just a decision in my mind, and you can't think your way solely to a new decision. There needs to be the safety, and the nervous system needs to match the energy of what that new kind of decision is, which I know sounds a little bit like, what are you even talking about? But it makes sense, right? What we need to do is create more evidence that we can do it, which is exactly what you and I have been doing, which is exactly why we're here, because we keep going, and we say it doesn't make sense because logically it doesn't make sense, and we haven't found the safety in it yet. However, we're choosing it anyway and creating our own safety so that we can keep going and keep going and keep going, and give ourselves that new proof.
And I think that's why you can absolutely, and people do, change their lives by themselves, right? Like, it's not impossible. It's just a lot harder, because what we do together and what we do with our clients and people that we work with is we help them return to that feeling of safety, to remember it, to get, it's a bit like having a personal trainer versus just hitting the gym. Like, when you've got somebody actually watching your technique and reminding you and pushing you that little bit when you don't want to do the next rep or whatever, you just get fitter quicker. It's the same, and again, we don't get fit by thinking about going to the gym.
No.
We have to show up and do the reps, and then, just like fitness, personal transformation becomes more automatic and starts to be the more automatic response. It's kind of clunky at first when you're doing something new, and then it becomes more and more the way you are and who you are. So then, just becomes, this is who I am, so this is what I do.
So, yeah. Something else I heard, I've heard a couple of the ladies talking about, was like this idea that this work will end, and that we'll get to a point where we don't have these things come up anymore, or like we won't ever have problems again. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, that's not the point. Like, if we're, and I always thought that too. That's at the start of my journey. I was like, oh, I can't wait till I get to a point where I'm just like,
there's no
so
problems.
zen and happy all the time, and like always positive, and life's just going to be sunshine and rainbows every day. And then I realized, like, I don't even want that. Like, it's actually not the point, because you're always going to be faced with challenges, struggles, problems. What for me the goal is, like, being able to handle them, like how I show up to face the challenge or whatever it might be, and how much time I spend in the story, or like what the meaning is that I attach to it, or how I move through it, opposed to feeling like I want to live a life where I don't have any, because there's so much growth, and it's like there's so much that comes out of a challenge. Like, I'm grateful when something tricky comes my way, because I know that there's so much for me to take away from that and learn about myself.
But how do we know what good is if we don't have the contrast? How do we know what summer is if we don't have the winter? Like, the contrast of problems and challenges helps us refine and just get more and more like detailed with what we do want, what we do strive for. And so we absolutely we kind of require the problems to remind us and to help us fine tune and get more and more specific and more like fit at leaning into the things that we want. And the idea that there's not going to be problems is, absurd, is in my view. What the difference is for me is how long do I stay in it as a problem, and wallow in the problem and let it suck energy and focus from me, versus seeing the situation for what it is and being able to like quickly bring myself back to, okay, so what am I going to do? What am I going to do about this? As opposed to just, where I spent a very, very long time like indulging and going round and round in my problems and the problem, and why, all the like rationalization around why my life is so hard and why this is all so difficult. And it's very disempowering. And just keeps you, like you said before, like just getting the same of the same. You just stay in that.
Yeah, and then wonder why is it so hard for me?
Yeah, whereas now like a problem comes along, I kind of view it as a learning opportunity, and it's like, oh, what's happening here? Okay, hang on, interesting, and like you get to be more playful and curious about life, instead of it being like, oh God, there's all of these problems and they will weigh me down. It's like, oh, actually, what is this teaching me? And and that's not just like toxic positive thinking, right? That's actually that's genuinely looking at a scenario and going, well, what can I, how can I transform this? Like, what am I going to learn from it, and what am I going to do about it? And actually taking action and taking from it what you needed, right? Like I just get more and more insight about myself and about who I, want to be and how I want to show up, and the practical, like, learnings of how I show up. So I'm like, bring on the problems. It's okay.
Exactly. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be hard either, right? Like, there's definitely been times when something comes up and it's like, it doesn't.
But the hard gets like
smaller and smaller.
The experience of the hard gets shorter, and it's not as deep. Like, I used to get into the hard and I'd be like, I'm in 100 feet down, let's go, Whereas now I start to dip into it and I'm like, oh, hang on, oh, I'm not really, and that's the kind of fitness I talk about when I say you get like self-awareness fitness, or whatever the lingo is that sits right for people. For me, that fitness of recognizing something is happening for me, I'm about to lean back into an old pattern or behavior, not as hard, not for as long, pop back out, carry on. It's, the driver who cuts you off and you let them ruin you or the whole rest of your day, those few split seconds in your morning, or seeing it for what it is and genuinely letting it go and carrying on through and enjoying your day. Like it's a choice.
So I was just about to say, had somebody asked me the other day, like, okay, like I like the idea of this. What do I do? Like, give me some action, which is hilarious because we all want the strategy, right? Like,
Which I'm not going to do as soon as you tell me because I'm going to pick it apart and I know better than you. And,
you can give me the strategy and then I'll pretend like I'm interested and then I won't do it and then I'll wonder why it doesn't work. The first thing to do is choose. Make a choice.
Yeah. And in 12 step, we talk about 1 day at a time. 1 minute at a time. What am I going to do next? What's the best, like, a bit of action I can do next? And it's like, keep it to the here and now, right? Eckhart Tolle talks about there's only ever the present moment. You can be concerned about what has happened already and imagine what could happen, but actually all we've actually got is right here, right now. And so what's the choice you're going to make right now? And is it going to move you closer to the person or the life that you want, or is it going to keep you stuck?